The Roman Catholic Church entered the mid-16th century in a state of doctrinal and institutional response. The Council of Trent, convened in 1545 and concluded in 1563 under Pope Pius IV, established the foundational framework for the Church's Counter-Reformation. The Council reaffirmed the seven sacraments, confirmed the necessity of both Scripture and Church tradition as sources of divine authority, and codified doctrines concerning original sin, justification, and the nature of the Eucharist. It addressed clerical discipline, mandating the establishment of seminaries for the proper education of priests, the enforcement of residency requirements for bishops, and the elimination of widespread abuses in ecclesiastical offices. The Council of Trent issued decrees on the standardization of liturgical practice, resulting in the promulgation of the Roman Missal by Pope Pius V in 1570. This standardization was implemented across dioceses in Italy, Spain, France, Germany, and the Habsburg territories. Bishops were instructed to ensure compliance, and diocesan synods were convened to monitor implementation. Records from the Vatican archives indicate that papal legates regularly inspected local churches to confirm adherence to Tridentine norms, documenting instances of deviation and enforcing corrective measures. Papal authority during this period was reinforced through administrative reforms. Pope Pius V issued several bulls, including Regnans in Excelsis, 1570, which articulated the Pope's doctrinal and spiritual supremacy in response to Protestant expansion, notably targeting England under Elizabeth I. The bull excommunicated Elizabeth, reinforcing the Church's stance against national rulers who had enacted religious reforms outside papal approval. Correspondence from the Vatican Secret Archives details the coordination between Rome and Catholic monarchs to address ecclesiastical disputes and support the implementation of Trent's decrees. Religious orders experienced significant expansion in this period. The Society of Jesus, founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, grew rapidly, establishing schools, seminaries, and missionary stations throughout Europe and overseas territories. By 1554, Jesuit colleges operated in Rome, Paris, Coimbra, and Salamanca, and records show active engagement in theological instruction, pastoral care, and the dissemination of Counter-Reformation literature. Papal correspondence confirms the Jesuits' role in advising monarchs, instructing clergy, and serving as a model for clerical discipline. Missionary activity extended to the Americas, India, and East Asia, with documented letters from Jesuit missionaries reporting the establishment of churches, educational institutions, and catechetical programs. In Spain, Catholic consolidation was enforced through both ecclesiastical and civil institutions. The Spanish Inquisition, operating under papal sanction, continued to monitor heretical activity, issue formal censures, and supervise doctrinal conformity. Records from the Archivo Histórico Nacional indicate detailed proceedings against individuals suspected of Protestant influence, Judaizing practices, or unauthorized religious publications. Spain's monarchy collaborated with the Church, funding missionary expeditions and ensuring the appointment of compliant bishops and inquisitors. These arrangements were formalized through concordats and royal decrees ratified by successive popes. France presented a parallel consolidation under the monarchy. The reign of Henry III, 1574 to 1589, and Henry IV, 1589 to 1610, saw the formal establishment of mechanisms to enforce Catholic orthodoxy, documented in royal edicts and parliamentary records. Bishops held diocesan synods to enforce Tridentan decrees, focusing on seminarian education, clerical residency, and standardized liturgy. The French Wars of Religion, 1562 to 1598, documented in state and ecclesiastical records, reflected the conflict between Protestant Huguenots and Catholic forces, with the Church formally supporting the enforcement of Catholic orthodoxy through coordination with the Crown. The Edict of Nantes in 1598, recorded in the Royal Archives, provided limited toleration for Protestants while maintaining Catholicism as the state religion, ensuring long-term Catholic consolidation. In Italy, the Papal States maintained direct governance over territories such as Bologna, Ferrara, and Urbino. Papal administrative records reveal the deployment of legates and governors to oversee diocesan compliance with Trent. Urban clergy were trained in seminaries established by papal mandate, and visitation records from the Vatican Archive detail systematic inspections of parishes, verifying the instruction of catechumens, enforcement of moral discipline, and implementation of liturgical norms. The papacy's temporal authority enabled the direct enforcement of ecclesiastical legislation, documented through financial ledgers, administrative correspondence, and judicial proceedings. The Habsburg territories, encompassing Austria, Hungary, and the Low Countries, presented additional fronts for Catholic consolidation. Archival documents from Vienna and Prague demonstrate the integration of Tridentan reforms with regional governance. Bishops were instructed to supervise clergy, enforce orthodoxy in preaching, and establish seminaries, while secular rulers coordinated with Rome to suppress Protestant activity. Military engagements in the Low Countries, such as the 80 Years' War, 1568 to 1648, were accompanied by ecclesiastical correspondence outlining pastoral responses, the protection of Catholic communities, and the strategic placement of loyal bishops. Religious conflict during this period was not limited to localized disputes. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, documented extensively in state treaties, papal correspondence, and diocesan records, exemplified the intersection of doctrinal enforcement, territorial politics, and Catholic consolidation. Papal letters from Gregory XV and Urban VIII coordinated with Catholic monarchs, guiding the alignment of armies, protection of church property, and support for Catholic populations. Archival documents detail the organization of ecclesiastical tribunals, the collection of tithes for war relief, and the deployment of missionaries to maintain pastoral care amid the conflict. Jesuit involvement in military and diplomatic spheres is recorded in the Vatican Archives and state correspondence. Jesuits served as advisors to Catholic generals, provided education to nobility and clergy, and engaged in negotiation efforts between warring factions. Reports from Jesuit missions in Bohemia and Bavaria describe the establishment of schools, the provision of sacraments, and the dissemination of Catholic doctrine in areas contested by Protestant forces. This period demonstrates the integration of religious, educational, and political activities in consolidating Catholic influence. Documentation from diocesan synods, papal briefs, and episcopal visitation records confirms the systematic implementation of Trent's reforms across Europe. Seminaries were staffed according to papal mandates, curricula were standardized, and examinations of clergy competency were conducted. Liturgical uniformity was maintained through inspection and reporting mechanisms, ensuring that Mass, sacraments, and preaching adhered to Tridentan norms. Canonical decrees from the Vatican, including the Roman Catechism, 1566, served as instructional guides for clergy and lay education. Missionary expansion beyond Europe is also verifiable through documented correspondence. In the Americas, Jesuit, Franciscan, and Dominican missions established parishes and schools in regions including New Spain, Peru, and Brazil. Letters from provincial superiors report baptisms, the establishment of confraternities, and the instruction of indigenous populations according to Catholic doctrine. Similar correspondence from India and Japan records the creation of mission stations, interactions with local rulers, and the introduction of liturgical practices, catechesis, and church governance structures. These letters are preserved in Vatican archives and provincial Jesuit repositories. Papal diplomatic activity reinforced consolidation. Treaties, concordats, and correspondence with monarchs of Spain, France, and the Holy Roman Empire outlined the negotiation of ecclesiastical appointments, the protection of church property, and the suppression of heretical movements. Diplomatic dispatches document interventions in disputes over episcopal elections, the maintenance of canonical jurisdiction, and coordination with secular authorities to uphold orthodoxy. The integration of church and state authority in these regions is substantiated through treaties ratified by both papal and royal officials. The period concluded with the formal end of the 30 Years' War in 1648, codified in the Peace of Westphalia. Papal records indicate the Vatican's formal recognition of the resulting territorial and political settlements, including the retention of ecclesiastical authority within the Holy Roman Empire's Catholic territories. While Protestant and Catholic powers retained divergent spheres, the Church's internal consolidation, doctrinal uniformity, and hierarchical enforcement mechanisms remained intact, documented through episcopal registers, papal bulls, and synodal decrees. The conclusion of the 30 Years' War in 1648, formalized through the Peace of Westphalia, reshaped the political and religious landscape of Europe. Catholic territorial control in the Holy Roman Empire, the Low Countries, and other regions was confirmed, while the independence of Protestant principalities was recognized. Papal correspondence and diplomatic dispatches document the Church's response to the settlements, emphasizing the preservation of ecclesiastical authority within Catholic-controlled territories and the need for coordination with secular rulers. The Peace of Westphalia established the precedent for a European political order in which the Church retained influence primarily within aligned monarchies, a framework reinforced by documented concordats and papal bulls during the latter half of the 17th century. In France, the reign of Louis XIV, 1643 to 1715, exemplified the integration of Catholic orthodoxy with absolutist governance. Papal archives indicate that Rome received regular reports on episcopal appointments, diocesan synods, and the enforcement of Tridentan reforms in French territories. Louis XIV's revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685, formalized in royal edicts and communicated through letters preserved in the Vatican secret archives, restored full Catholic primacy and required the conversion or expulsion of Protestant populations. Records of French bishops demonstrate that seminaries expanded their enrollment in compliance with papal directives, emphasizing catechetical instruction, liturgical conformity, and clerical discipline. The royal administration coordinated with bishops to oversee parish adherence, enforce moral codes, and maintained centralized oversight of clergy and educational institutions. Spain maintained similar consolidation, reinforced through ecclesiastical and civil structures. Papal correspondence from the pontificates of Innocent X, Alexander VII, and Clement IX documents the regulation of episcopal appointments, monitoring of doctrinal enforcement, and coordination of missionary activities. Spanish archives, including the Archivo General de Indias, provide detailed records of missionary expeditions to the Americas, the Philippines, and parts of Asia, documenting the foundation of churches, schools, and hospitals, along with reports on baptisms, catechesis, and ecclesiastical governance. In addition, the Spanish Inquisition continued to operate under papal sanction, issuing formal censures, overseeing doctrinal conformity, and monitoring publications to prevent heretical influence. Detailed inquisitorial registers confirm the procedural and judicial mechanisms used to maintain orthodoxy within both clergy and laity. The Habsburg territories, encompassing Austria, Hungary, and Bohemia, were central to Catholic consolidation during this period. Papal bulls, correspondence, and diocesan visitation records demonstrate that the Church coordinated closely with the imperial administration to enforce Tridentine norms. Bishops in Vienna, Prague, and Salzburg maintained detailed registers of clergy, seminaries, and parish activities, documenting the establishment of seminaries, inspection of parish records, and enforcement of moral and doctrinal compliance. Archival records indicate the strategic placement of loyal prelates in contested regions, accompanied by Jesuit and Capuchin missions tasked with providing education, pastoral care, and catechesis to ensure uniformity of practice across culturally and linguistically diverse territories. Missionary activity expanded significantly during this period, with documented evidence from Jesuit, Franciscan, and Dominican correspondences. In North and South America, mission stations were established in New Spain, Peru, Brazil, and the Rio de la Plata region. Letters from provincial superiors report the creation of parishes, schools, and hospitals, along with records of sacramental administration and the instruction of indigenous populations according to Catholic doctrine. In India, documented letters from Jesuit missions in Goa and Madras describe the establishment of educational institutions, churches, and catechetical programs, coordinated with Portuguese colonial authorities under papal sanction. In China and Japan, Jesuit missionaries maintained written reports to Rome detailing the introduction of liturgical practices, the documentation of local religious customs, and the establishment of local clergy, confirming sustained pastoral and doctrinal oversight. In Italy, the Papal States maintained extensive administrative records documenting the enforcement of Tridentine reforms. Urban parishes were subject to regular visitation by cardinals, legates, and bishops, whose reports detailed compliance with seminary curricula, clerical residence requirements, and liturgical uniformity. Financial ledgers indicate the allocation of funds for seminary construction, clergy salaries, and parish maintenance, while judicial records document disciplinary proceedings against clergy who failed to adhere to prescribed norms. Archival evidence shows that papal governors implemented comprehensive oversight mechanisms, ensuring doctrinal uniformity and institutional continuity across the territories under direct papal control. The Enlightenment introduced documented challenges to church authority, reflected in the circulation of philosophical works and scientific treatises. Archival correspondence from Rome between 1670 and 1780 indicates papal awareness of intellectual movements in France, Italy, and the German states. Papal briefs and congregational instructions, preserved in the Vatican secret archives, respond to publications promoting secular governance, empirical philosophy, and critique of ecclesiastical institutions. The Congregation of the Index maintained comprehensive records of prohibited books, documenting the systematic evaluation and censorship of literature deemed incompatible with Catholic teaching. These measures are corroborated by episcopal registers detailing the enforcement of the index within diocesan jurisdictions, including inspections of private libraries, bookshops, and academic institutions. Catholic educational institutions expanded throughout Europe during this period, with Jesuit colleges playing a central role. Enrollment records, curricula, and faculty registers from Rome, Paris, Coimbra, Salamanca, and Prague confirm the teaching of theology, philosophy, and classical languages in accordance with papal directives. Jesuit letters detail the integration of rigorous intellectual training with pastoral formation, emphasizing adherence to doctrine, preparation for missionary work, and the cultivation of disciplined clergy capable of sustaining church influence within local and colonial contexts. Other religious orders, including the Dominicans and Capuchins, maintained parallel educational programs, with documented evidence of coordinated oversight, examination of candidates, and systematic evaluation of teaching effectiveness. In the German and Central European territories, documented records indicate that Catholic consolidation involved both political and ecclesiastical coordination. Bishops, in concert with local rulers, maintained registries of parishes, clergy, and lay confraternities. The implementation of Tridental decrees is substantiated through diocesan visitation records, synodal statutes, and episcopal correspondence. Jesuit and Capuchin missions supported catechetical efforts, facilitated the enforcement of sacramental discipline, and oversaw parish educational programs. Military conflicts such as localized uprisings and the continuation of Protestant Catholic tensions in Silesia and Bavaria are documented in letters between Rome and regional authorities detailing pastoral responses, protection of church property, and maintenance of clergy presence in contested areas. Missionary expansion continued beyond Europe, with documented activity in Africa, particularly along the coasts of Angola, Mozambique, and Madagascar. Letters from Jesuit and Capuchin missionaries describe the founding of mission stations, the administration of sacraments, and the instruction of local populations in the Catholic faith. Reports to Rome include inventories of church property, lists of catechumens, and correspondence regarding the integration of mission stations into the broader church hierarchy. These letters provide direct evidence of systematic pastoral planning and coordination with both secular colonial authorities and the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith. The papacy's diplomatic engagement during this period is documented through concordats, treaties, and correspondence with monarchs. Archival evidence indicates negotiations concerning episcopal appointments, protection of ecclesiastical revenues, and enforcement of doctrinal conformity. Papal nuncios in Madrid, Vienna, and Paris maintained continuous reporting channels to Rome, detailing local political developments, clerical appointments, and compliance with Tridental reforms. Financial records corroborate the allocation of funds for diocesan administration, missionary activity, and support of loyal clergy, demonstrating the integration of administrative, financial, and spiritual oversight in maintaining Catholic consolidation. By the late 18th century, the Roman Catholic Church had established durable mechanisms for doctrinal, administrative, and territorial consolidation. Seminary systems, diocesan oversight, missionary networks, and Jesuit educational institutions functioned in documented coordination with papal authority and aligned monarchies. Episcopal visitation records, papal correspondence, synodal decrees, and missionary letters collectively confirm the systematic implementation of Tridentine reforms and the Church's capacity to maintain structural continuity across Europe, the Americas, Asia, and Africa. Church archives document the consistent enforcement of liturgical, educational, and moral standards, ensuring doctrinal uniformity and operational coherence despite the intellectual challenges posed by the Enlightenment and the gradual rise of secular governance. The onset of the French Revolution in 1789 initiated a profound transformation in the political and religious structures of Europe, directly affecting the Roman Catholic Church. Archival records from the Vatican and French ecclesiastical correspondence indicate that the revolutionary government immediately targeted church property, confiscating lands, monasteries, and cathedrals. The civil constitution of the clergy, enacted in 1790 and preserved in official French legislative records, subordinated the clergy to the revolutionary state, required an oath of loyalty, and reorganized dioceses without papal approval. Bishops and priests who refused the oath were removed from office, and many were imprisoned or executed. Vatican documents confirm repeated formal protests to the National Assembly, emphasizing the illegitimacy of unilateral state interference in ecclesiastical governance. Pope Pius VI responded through documented letters and encyclicals, including Charitas, 1791, and Quod Aliquantum, 1791, denouncing revolutionary measures and asserting papal spiritual authority over the French clergy. He instructed bishops and priests to maintain sacramental practice according to canon law, providing guidance for clergy in exile and coordination with foreign Catholic powers. Correspondence from French bishops to Rome, preserved in the Vatican secret archives, details the clandestine administration of sacraments, the formation of underground seminaries, and pastoral care of populations affected by revolutionary confiscations. In 1798, French troops occupied Rome, leading to the papacy was restored in 1800 with the election of Pope Pius VII. Historical records indicate that he immediately sought to re-establish church governance in Rome and throughout the Papal States. In 1801, the Concordat of 1801 with Napoleon Bonaparte, confirmed in Vatican archives and French official documentation, redefined relations between the French state and the Church. The Concordat allowed the Pope to nominate bishops, recognized Catholicism as the religion of the majority of French citizens, and restored limited rights to the clergy. However, the French government retained administrative control over diocesan boundaries and clerical remuneration, a balance carefully recorded in papal correspondence and state records. Pius VII faced additional disruption during the Napoleonic Wars. French military occupation of the Papal States in 1808, the annexation of Rome, and the subsequent imprisonment of the Pope in France from 1809 to 1814 are documented in Vatican dispatches and official French records. Papal correspondence during this period coordinated with allied monarchs and nuncios to ensure continuity of episcopal appointments, seminary education, and the administration of sacraments in regions outside French control. Upon release and the restoration of the Papal States in 1814, Pius VII issued formal decrees reaffirming diocesan boundaries, seminary regulations, and Tridentan liturgical norms. During the post-Napoleonic period, documented records indicate that the Church faced both opportunities and constraints in reasserting authority. The Congress of Vienna, 1814 to 1815, recorded in diplomatic correspondence and treaties, restored temporal territories to the Papal States, while simultaneously confirming the rights of secular monarchs to influence appointments and policy within their realms. Papal bulls and administrative letters from this period detail the restructuring of diocesan governance, the reestablishment of seminaries, and the reaffirmation of Catholic institutions across Europe, including Austria, the Italian peninsula, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. The early 19th century also witnessed the expansion of missionary activity. Letters from the propagandified and Jesuit provincial records indicate the continuation of outreach in the Americas, Asia, and Africa, including the founding of churches, educational institutions, and hospitals. Reports from missionaries in New Spain, Brazil, and the Philippines document the coordination with colonial authorities, establishment of parish registers, catechetical instruction of local populations, and the training of indigenous clergy under Tridentan norms. Similar letters from China and Japan report the maintenance of mission stations and efforts to preserve sacramental administration despite political restrictions imposed by local rulers. Domestically, the papacy continued to emphasize seminary education and clerical discipline. Archival records detail episcopal visitations to dioceses in Italy, Austria, and Spain, ensuring the proper training of priests in theology, canon law, and pastoral administration. Seminary curricula were standardized in accordance with Tridentan guidelines, with documented examinations assessing doctrinal knowledge, liturgical competence, and pastoral readiness. Papal decrees confirmed the residency of bishops within their diocese and the requirement for regular reporting to Rome on clerical activity, parish conditions, and the implementation of sacramental norms. During the reign of Pope Leo XII, 1823 to 1829, and Pope Pius VIII, 1829 to 1830, Vatican correspondence documents continued efforts to regulate liturgical uniformity, enforce moral discipline among clergy, and consolidate ecclesiastical authority within Italian territories and across Europe. Papal briefs indicate ongoing coordination with Catholic monarchs, particularly in Austria, Bavaria, and Spain, to ensure episcopal compliance with canonical directives. Archival documentation confirms the use of diocesan synods, visitation records, and official correspondence to monitor and enforce Tridentan reforms, while correspondence with nuncios documents the papacy's diplomatic engagement in politically sensitive regions. The mid-19th century witnessed further challenges with the rise of nationalist movements and revolutions in 1848. Documented records show that Pope Pius IX issued encyclicals and pastoral letters responding to these developments, addressing the need to preserve canonical authority, protect church property, and maintain the rights of bishops and clergy. The revolutions affected the Papal States directly, resulting in temporary expulsions of papal administration and the establishment of the short-lived Roman Republic. Papal correspondence with European monarchs, including Austria, France, and Spain, documented requests for military and diplomatic support to restore papal governance, and Vatican records confirm the restoration of temporal authority in 1849 following military intervention by French forces under Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. Pius IX's papacy also witnessed the formal definition of papal spiritual authority. Vatican I, convened in 1869 and concluded in 1870, produced the dogmatic Constitution Pastor Aeternus, which codified the doctrine of papal infallibility in matters of faith and morals. The Council's documents, preserved in Vatican archives, detail the deliberation of bishops, theological arguments, and the formal approval of the doctrine. The declaration affirmed the Pope's supreme authority within the Church, independent of secular interference, while maintaining canonical procedures for consultation and episcopal involvement. The Council also confirmed Tridentine reforms, reaffirmed episcopal responsibilities, and established guidelines for seminary education and liturgical observance. The Italian unification process directly affected papal temporal authority. Archival records indicate that in 1870, the Kingdom of Italy annexed Rome, effectively ending the Papal States' political sovereignty. Pius IX's response, documented in Vatican letters and encyclicals, maintained that spiritual authority remained intact despite the loss of temporal control. Administrative records confirm the reorganization of diocesan governance within the former Papal States, ensuring continuity of pastoral care, seminary oversight, and sacramental administration under papal direction. Papal correspondence with bishops throughout Europe emphasized the primacy of spiritual authority, the protection of ecclesiastical property where possible, and the continued supervision of clergy in both domestic and colonial territories. Throughout the period from 1789 to 1870, the Roman Catholic Church maintained consistent oversight of global missionary efforts. Letters from the Propaganda Fide, Jesuit provincial records, and Franciscan and Dominican correspondences document the foundation of churches, schools, and hospitals in the Americas, Asia, and Africa. These letters provide detailed information on catechetical instruction, administration of sacraments, coordination with colonial authorities, and the development of local clergy. In addition, records indicate systematic reporting to Rome regarding compliance with canonical norms, the training of clergy, and pastoral activity within diverse cultural contexts. Papal diplomacy was central to maintaining church influence during the revolutions, Napoleonic occupation, and European nationalist movements. Concordats, treaties, and correspondence with monarchs and local authorities documented negotiations over episcopal appointments, ecclesiastical jurisdiction, and protection of church property. Papal nuncios and legates maintained continuous communication with Rome, reporting local developments, compliance with Tridentine reforms, and enforcement of canonical legislation. Financial records corroborate the allocation of resources to diocesan administration, missionary work, and support of displaced or persecuted clergy. The capture of Rome in 1870 by the Kingdom of Italy marked the definitive end of the Papal States, terminating centuries of papal temporal sovereignty over central Italy. Archival records from the Vatican indicate that Pope Pius IX formally refused to recognize the new Italian government as authority over Rome, asserting in encyclicals such as Non Expedit that the spiritual authority of the papacy remained intact despite the loss of territorial control. Administrative correspondence confirms that diocesan structures within the former Papal States were reorganized to maintain canonical governance, seminary oversight, and parish administration under papal direction. Bishops continued to report to Rome regarding clerical appointments, sacramental activity, and compliance with liturgical and disciplinary standards. Pius IX's successor, Pope Leo XIII, 1878 to 1903, implemented systematic reforms to adapt the Church's administration to the changing political context. Vatican archives document a series of encyclicals and apostolic letters emphasizing the development of social teaching, addressing labor conditions, industrialization, and social inequalities emerging in Europe and North America. The encyclical Rerum Novarum, 1891, formally articulated the Church's position on labor rights, private property, and the obligations of employers and workers, substantiated by papal correspondence with bishops in industrialized regions such as northern Italy, France, and the Rhineland. Letters from diocesan offices detail the dissemination of these directives to parishes, the establishment of charitable institutions, and the creation of worker associations under ecclesiastical guidance. Seminary education and clerical training were strengthened during this period. Archival records indicate the establishment and expansion of seminaries in Europe, Latin America, and Asia. Faculty registers, enrollment documents, and curricular outlines confirm adherence to Tridentan doctrinal instruction while incorporating contemporary educational methods. Bishops were instructed to conduct regular visitations, ensuring uniformity in theological instruction, liturgical practice, and pastoral training. Canonical correspondence preserved in the Vatican Secret Archives documents the supervision of these institutions and the reporting mechanisms used to verify compliance with papal standards. Missionary expansion in Asia, correspondence from missions in India, the Philippines, and China records the training of indigenous clergy, the administration of sacraments, and the establishment of educational institutions. Reports consistently confirm integration with papal directives and diocesan supervision, illustrating a global network of ecclesiastical governance. The Church's international diplomacy expanded in parallel with its global presence. Concordats, treaties, and papal correspondence with European, Latin American, and colonial authorities documented the negotiation of episcopal appointments, the protection of church property, and the regulation of religious education. Archival evidence shows ongoing coordination with secular authorities in Austria-Hungary, Spain, Portugal, and the German states, ensuring compliance with canonical law and the protection of church interests in regions undergoing political transition. Nunciature records indicate the use of diplomatic channels to monitor the status of dioceses, missionary stations, and clergy in both stable and contested territories. In Europe, the Church navigated the complexities of rising secular nationalism. In France, archival documents demonstrate that Catholic dioceses maintained operational continuity despite state policies restricting church influence in public education and civil administration. Bishops' letters to Rome report ongoing pastoral activity, seminary instruction, and the enforcement of moral and liturgical norms. Concordats and papal briefs codified the Church's rights in France, Italy, and Spain, while diplomatic correspondence documented negotiations with governments to safeguard ecclesiastical property, regulate clerical appointments, and preserve doctrinal authority. Industrialization and urbanization in Europe and North America prompted the Church to expand social and charitable institutions. Archival records indicate the foundation of hospitals, orphanages, schools, and worker associations, funded and administered under episcopal supervision. Letters from bishops in Germany, Austria, France, Italy, and the United States describe systematic implementation of Rerum Novarum principles, including oversight of charitable activities, education in parochial schools, and coordination with lay associations. Canonical correspondence confirms episcopal responsibility for ensuring doctrinal integrity within these institutions, while financial ledgers document the allocation of resources from diocesan revenues and papal funds. The Church's hierarchical structure remains stable and well documented. Episcopal visitation records, diocesan synodal decrees, and papal correspondence confirm the maintenance of clerical discipline, seminary oversight, and liturgical conformity. Bishops were required to submit annual reports to Rome detailing sacramental administration, clergy numbers, seminary operations, and compliance with canonical law. Archival evidence shows that diocesan tribunals adjudicated cases involving clerical misconduct, property disputes, and doctrinal deviations, ensuring operational continuity despite regional political instability. In the Americas, missionary activity and diocesan consolidation were documented through letters from archbishops in Mexico, Brazil, and the United States. Records indicate the establishment of parishes, schools, and hospitals, the training of clergy, and coordination with local governments. In North America, letters from bishops and papal nuncios describe the integration of immigrant populations into diocesan structures, the establishment of seminaries, and the creation of Catholic charitable institutions. Reports detail sacramental administration, the training of clergy in accordance with Tridentine norms, and the oversight of liturgical and pastoral practice, confirming adherence to papal directives. In Asia, documented correspondence from missionaries in India, the Philippines, China, and Japan highlights the creation of diocesan structures, parishes, and educational institutions. Letters include reports on the administration of sacraments, the training of indigenous clergy, and coordination with colonial authorities. In China, missionary records indicate engagement with local officials, establishment of church buildings, and the maintenance of registers for baptisms, marriages, and ordinations. Correspondence with Rome confirms the supervision of these missions, the reporting of clergy activities, and the integration of missionary territories into global ecclesiastical administration. Africa similarly experienced expansion. Letters from missionaries in Angola, Mozambique, Madagascar, and the Congo provide detailed evidence of the establishment of dioceses, schools, hospitals, and parish networks. Registers of baptisms, marriages, and clergy assignments were sent regularly to Rome, ensuring the continuity of sacramental and pastoral activity. Coordination with colonial administrations is documented in papal correspondence, confirming compliance with canonical regulations and integration into the broader structure of the Church's global presence. Liturgical standardization continued under papal supervision. The Roman Missal and Breviary remained normative, with bishops instructed to ensure uniformity in sacramental practice and preaching. Episcopal visitation records document inspections of parishes, verification of clergy adherence to Tridentine norms, and reporting of deviations. Papal briefs and synodal statutes directed the maintenance of clerical discipline, oversight of catechetical instruction, and enforcement of liturgical norms. Seminaries across Europe and missionary territories implemented standardized curricula, combining Tridentine theology with instruction in pastoral administration and liturgical practice. The Church's response to modern political ideologies and secularization was also documented. Papal encyclicals and briefs address challenges posed by nationalism, liberalism, and anti-clerical legislation. In Germany, letters from bishops to Rome describe negotiations with the state regarding episcopal appointments and church property, reflecting coordination with secular authorities while preserving canonical authority. In France, Vatican correspondence documents the regulation of seminaries and parishes under restrictive legal frameworks, confirming continued operational and doctrinal control. During this period, the Vatican maintained systematic documentation of global ecclesiastical activity. Letters from diocesan offices, missionary stations, and religious orders were archived in the Vatican secret archives, including reports on parish administration, seminary education, sacramental registers, and episcopal oversight. Concordats and treaties with secular authorities ensured legal recognition of the Church, confirmed rights to property, and regulated relations with governments. Financial records document the allocation of resources for diocesan administration, educational institutions, and missionary activity, confirming structured governance across multiple continents. The conclusion of the First World War in 1918 marked a critical period for the Roman Catholic Church as it navigated the consequences of unprecedented global conflict. Archival correspondence from the Vatican during the pontificate of Pope Benedict XV, 1914 to 1922, demonstrates sustained engagement with both belligerent and neutral powers, emphasizing humanitarian concerns, pastoral care, and the preservation of ecclesiastical structures disrupted by the war. Vatican records, including papal briefs and diplomatic dispatches, detail the coordination of relief for war-affected populations, the establishment of refugee centers, and the maintenance of sacramental administration in dioceses experiencing territorial upheaval. Pope Benedict XV issued the encyclical Pacem, De Munis Pulcherrimum, 1920, explicitly documenting the Church's position on post-war reconstruction and the necessity of reconciliation among nations. Letters from papal nuncios in France, Italy, Austria, and Germany confirmed the establishment of diocesan committees to implement directives on relief distribution, parish reconstruction, and pastoral continuity. Records from charitable organizations, including Catholic Relief Services precursors, document systematic efforts to provide food, medical care, and clerical support to displaced populations and communities devastated by wartime destruction. The interwar period presented significant challenges for the Church in negotiating relationships with emergent political regimes. Archival documents confirm that the Vatican engaged in diplomatic agreements, concordats, and negotiations with the governments of Italy, Spain, Austria, Poland, and other European states. The 1929 Lateran Treaty, formally ratified and preserved in both Vatican and Italian government records, resolved the Roman question by establishing Vatican City as a sovereign entity under papal control. The treaty delineated territorial boundaries, confirmed papal authority over the governance of the Church, and regulated relations with the Italian state, including the protection of ecclesiastical property, recognition of Catholicism as the official religion of the state, and the legal framework for clergy employment and seminarian education. During the 1920s and 1930s, papal diplomacy extended to emerging totalitarian and authoritarian regimes. Archival correspondence details the negotiation of concordats with Austria, 1933, Germany, 1933, and Poland, 1925 to 1938, which aimed to regulate ecclesiastical appointments, religious education, and church property, while preserving the Church's spiritual and canonical authority. Letters from papal nuncios document the systematic monitoring of state interference, the enforcement of canonical law, and the coordination of episcopal responses to legal restrictions. Financial and administrative records from dioceses confirm the continuity of seminary instruction, parish administration, and sacramental oversight despite the challenges posed by restrictive legislation and state surveillance. The Vatican's engagement with the rise of fascism in Italy and Germany is documented through formal correspondence, diplomatic reports, and encyclicals. Letters from bishops in Germany and Austria report measures taken to preserve seminaries, administer sacraments, and maintain liturgical and doctrinal continuity within dioceses operating under political scrutiny. Archival evidence confirms the establishment of educational institutions, charitable organizations, and social services aligned with papal directives, ensuring the ongoing presence and influence of the Church within constrained political environments. Vatican reports detail the systematic documentation of clergy activities, parish operations, and diocesan responses to state regulations, demonstrating adherence to canonical oversight while navigating the limitations imposed by secular authorities. Missionary activity during the interwar period continued and expanded in documented detail. Correspondence from Jesuit, Franciscan, and Dominican letters include inventories of church property, registers of baptisms, marriages, and ordinations, and coordination with colonial or local authorities. Reports to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith confirm that diocesan supervision was maintained, ensuring uniformity of liturgical practice, doctrinal teaching, and pastoral care across global missions. The Church's response to industrialization, urbanization, and social change is documented in papal encyclicals and diocesan correspondence. Pope Pius XI, 1922 to 1939, issued encyclicals such as Quadragesimo Anno, 1931, addressing the ethical and social implications of economic structures, labor rights, and social justice, which were systematically implemented by diocesan authorities. Records from European, North American, and Latin American dioceses confirm the establishment of worker associations, charitable institutions, and educational programs informed by papal directives. Bishops' letters to Rome detail monitoring of these initiatives, providing reports on organizational effectiveness, clerical participation, and compliance with canonical norms. The Vatican's administrative structures during this period were rigorously documented. Episcopal visitation records, diocesan synodal decrees, and papal correspondence confirm the maintenance of clerical discipline, seminary oversight, and sacramental regulation. Bishops submitted annual reports detailing the number of clergy, seminary enrollment, sacramental activity, and compliance with liturgical standards. Vatican archives contain records of canonical trials, adjudicating matters of clerical misconduct, property disputes, and doctrinal deviations, ensuring the operational and hierarchical continuity of the Church amid the turbulence of global conflict and political change. Global missionary correspondence indicates sustained expansion and adaptation to local contexts. In Africa, reports from dioceses in the Belgian Congo, Angola, Mozambique, and Nigeria detail the founding of new parishes, the construction of schools and hospitals, and systematic catechetical instruction. Archival letters document collaboration with colonial administrations, including the coordination of legal and property matters and the training of indigenous clergy. Missionary correspondence to Rome consistently provides inventories of religious personnel, sacramental records, and pastoral initiatives, confirming compliance with canonical and doctrinal standards. In Asia, documented correspondence from missions in India, the Philippines, China, and Japan illustrates the continued establishment of diocesan structures and educational institutions. Letters from bishops and religious superiors report sacramental administration, the ordination and supervision of local clergy, and the establishment of hospitals and charitable institutions. Vatican archives contain instructions for the coordination of pastoral care, supervision of seminary education, and integration of mission stations into broader ecclesiastical governance. Reports emphasize systematic record-keeping, including registers of baptisms, marriages, and clerical assignments, confirming operational continuity across culturally diverse regions. The Americas similarly experienced documented expansion. Letters from bishops and papal nuncios in the United States, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile record the creation of parishes, educational institutions, and charitable organizations. Archival evidence confirms the training of clergy, maintenance of sacramental records, and coordination with both papal authorities and local governments. Correspondence details the systematic implementation of liturgical norms, seminary oversight, and diocesan supervision, ensuring doctrinal consistency and operational integrity across multiple continents. During the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, Vatican records confirm the Church's continued engagement with belligerent and occupied territories. Pope Pius XII, 1939 to 1958, directed the coordination of relief for civilians, prisoners of war, and displaced persons, documented in letters, encyclicals, and reports from nuncios in Europe. Archival correspondence from bishops in occupied France, Italy, Poland, and other territories details the administration of sacraments, pastoral care, and the protection of church property under military occupation. Reports from Vatican diplomatic channels document negotiations with governments to safeguard clergy, religious institutions, and the continuity of ecclesiastical governance despite wartime conditions. The Vatican also maintained oversight of global missionary operations during this period. Letters from religious orders and diocesan offices in Africa, Asia, and Latin America document the establishment of educational institutions, hospitals, and parishes, the training of local clergy, and the administration of sacraments. Archival correspondence confirms coordination with colonial authorities, adherence to canonical norms, and supervision of pastoral activities, demonstrating operational continuity despite global conflict. Social and educational initiatives were systematically documented. Reports from diocesan offices detail the operation of schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions, following directives from Rome regarding pedagogy, pastoral care, and doctrinal instruction. Episcopal visitation records confirm the enforcement of Tridentine norms, the maintenance of liturgical conformity, and the oversight of clergy assigned to social and educational work. Papal correspondence instructed the integration of Catholic social teaching into institutional frameworks, particularly in response to the socio-economic challenges produced by war and political upheaval. Diplomatic engagement during this period remained central to church strategy. Concordats and treaties with Italy, Germany, Poland, Spain, and other nations documented in both Vatican and state archives, regulated episcopal appointments, religious education, and property rights, while securing legal recognition for the Church's global activities. Papal nuncios reported continuously on local political developments, ecclesiastical compliance, and enforcement of canonical legislation. Financial records corroborate the allocation of resources for diocesan administration, missionary expansion, and humanitarian efforts, demonstrating structured governance across multiple continents. By 1945, the Roman Catholic Church had preserved its global presence, doctrinal coherence, and administrative integrity despite the devastations of 2 world wars, the rise of totalitarian regimes, and political upheavals. Archival documentation demonstrates that diocesan oversight, seminary education, missionary networks, charitable institutions, and diplomatic channels functioned in coordinated relation to papal authority. Letters from bishops, religious orders, and papal nuncios confirm the systematic implementation of sacramental, liturgical, and pastoral norms across Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The Church emerged from this period with operational continuity, hierarchical stability, and a foundation for post-war reconstruction and adaptation to modern political, social, and cultural realities. The conclusion of World War II in 1945 initiated a period of structural and administrative reorganization for the Roman Catholic Church driven by the dual imperatives of addressing the aftermath of global conflict and responding to rapid social, political, and cultural transformation. Archival correspondence from the Vatican, including papal briefs and letters to diocesan bishops, indicates that Pope Pius XII, 1939 to 1958, directed systematic oversight of European dioceses affected by wartime devastation. Records from the Secretariat of State and the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith document initiatives for the reconstruction of ecclesiastical infrastructure, the reestablishment of seminaries, and the support of clergy displaced or compromised during occupation and military operations. In Western and Central Europe, diocesan letters and episcopal visitations confirm the restoration of churches, seminaries, and parish facilities. Financial ledgers from dioceses in Italy, Germany, France, Poland, and Austria provide detailed documentation of the allocation of resources for rebuilding, the procurement of liturgical materials, and the re-establishment of charitable institutions. Canonical correspondence confirms adherence to Tridentine norms for liturgy, sacramental administration, and clerical training, emphasizing continuity of doctrinal authority and hierarchical governance despite local destruction and socio-political instability. During this period, the Church intensified its global missionary efforts. Records from the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith, letters from Jesuit, Franciscan, Dominican, and Salesian missions, and episcopal correspondence document the establishment of new parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminary institutions across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. In Africa, letters from missionaries in the Belgian Congo, Nigeria, Angola, and Mozambique detail the creation of diocesan structures, sacramental registers, catechetical instruction, and the training of indigenous clergy. These reports include inventories of church property, parish registers of baptisms, marriages, and ordinations, and coordination with colonial and emerging local authorities, all under supervision from Rome. In Asia, missionary correspondence preserved in Vatican archives indicates continued expansion in India, the Philippines, China, and Japan. Reports include the construction of churches and educational facilities, the ordination of local clergy, the administration of sacraments, and the operation of hospitals and charitable organizations. Letters from bishops and religious superiors outline systematic reporting to Rome, the integration of new diocesan territories into canonical structures, and the implementation of liturgical and doctrinal directives. These records confirm compliance with papal oversight and uniformity in sacramental practice across culturally diverse contexts. The Church also addressed challenges arising from the rapid secularization and political shifts of the post-war period. Archival evidence documents the negotiation of concordats and treaties with newly established or reconstituted states in Europe, Latin America, and Asia, regulating ecclesiastical jurisdiction, episcopal appointments, religious education, and the protection of church property. Papal nuncios submitted detailed reports on compliance with canonical law, local political developments, and coordination with bishops in areas experiencing legal or administrative changes. Financial ledgers confirm allocation of funds for diocesan administration, missionary activity, and the maintenance of seminaries, schools, and hospitals. Seminary reform and clerical training were emphasized in post-war reconstruction. Registers, curricula, and visitation reports document the standardization of instruction in theology, canon law, liturgy, and pastoral practice, consistent with Tridentine norms. Bishops conducted regular visitations. Letters from the Congregation for the Clergy provide detailed oversight of these processes, confirming operational continuity and hierarchical supervision across dioceses. By the late 1950s, preparations for a major ecumenical council were underway, culminating in the convening of the Second Vatican Council, Vatican II, under Pope John XXI, 1958 to 1963. Vatican archival documents, including preparatory commissions reports, schemata, and episcopal correspondence, detail the process of consultation with bishops worldwide. Records indicate the systematic collection of observations, diocesan reports, and recommendations concerning liturgical practice, theological instruction, parish administration, ecumenical relations, religious orders, and engagement with contemporary social and cultural realities. These materials provided a comprehensive factual foundation for deliberations, ensuring continuity of doctrinal oversight while addressing practical organizational needs. The opening session of Vatican II in 1962, documented in council acts, conciliar decrees, and episcopal letters, initiated a structured process of review and reform. Decrees and constitutions issued during the council, including Sacrosanctum Concilium on liturgical reform, Lumen Gentium on the Church's hierarchical structure, and Gaudium et Spes on the Church in the modern world, are preserved in Vatican archives and provide detailed procedural and doctrinal directives. Council documentation records the debate, voting procedures, and formal promulgation of each text, confirming adherence to canonical procedures and ensuring hierarchical continuity. Liturgical reform, as mandated by Sacrosanctum Concilium, involved systematic revision of the Roman Missal, Breviary, and other liturgical texts. Episcopal visitations and diocesan correspondence document the implementation of vernacular languages in the liturgy, the reorganization of liturgical rites, and the adaptation of sacramental practice to comply with conciliar norms. Archival letters detail training programs for clergy and laity, emphasizing consistency with Tridentine principles of sacramental administration, clerical oversight, and liturgical instruction. Reports confirm the issuance of revised rubrics, the supervision of seminaries in implementing reforms, and the monitoring of parish compliance. The conciliar emphasis on ecumenical outreach is extensively documented. Letters from Vatican offices, episcopal reports, and papal briefs confirm coordination with Orthodox, Anglican, and Protestant communities, including formal communication regarding theological dialogue, liturgical observation, and cooperative social initiatives. Records demonstrate that these efforts were systematically organized and monitored, with episcopal correspondence reporting results, challenges, and the integration of findings into diocesan administration and pastoral planning. Canonical governance was reinforced through post-conciliar documentation. Diocesan synodal decrees, visitation records, and reports to the Congregation for Bishops outline the implementation of new structures for parish administration, episcopal oversight, and coordination with religious orders. Registers confirm the supervision of seminaries, assessment of clerical formation, and evaluation of parish activities in compliance with conciliar and papal directives. Archival correspondence illustrates continuous hierarchical monitoring to ensure doctrinal consistency and operational integrity across dioceses worldwide. The Council also mandated structural reform in the administration of religious orders and lay organizations. Letters from superiors of Jesuit, Franciscan, Dominican, and other congregations, preserved in Vatican archives, document compliance with canonical adjustments, supervision of educational and missionary activities, and reporting on the operation of hospitals, schools, and charitable institutions. Episcopal correspondence confirms the integration of lay associations into diocesan frameworks, monitoring adherence to doctrinal and liturgical norms, and coordination with diocesan authorities to maintain hierarchical control. Global missionary activity continued in alignment with conciliar directives. Correspondence from dioceses and religious orders in Africa, Asia, and Latin America documents the expansion of parishes, the establishment of schools and hospitals, the training of indigenous clergy, and the administration of sacraments. Letters to Rome confirm oversight of missionary territories, reporting on compliance with canonical law, sacramental administration, and pastoral activity. Records include inventories of church property, registers of baptisms, marriages, and ordinations, confirming operational continuity and integration into the global church structure. The post-war period also witnessed systematic attention to social and educational institutions. Reports from dioceses in Europe, the Americas, and Asia document the operation of schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations, with detailed accounting of financial, administrative, and pastoral activities. Archival correspondence outlines the supervision of clergy assigned to these institutions, adherence to canonical and conciliar directives, and coordination with diocesan authorities to ensure compliance with papal and conciliar standards. The conclusion of the Second Vatican Council in 1965 marked the beginning of a period of systematic post-conciliar implementation and adaptation for the Roman Catholic Church. Archival documentation, including papal briefs, diocesan correspondence, and episcopal visitation records, indicates that Pope Paul VI, 1963 to 1978, initiated a coordinated program to implement the Council's reforms across dioceses worldwide. The primary focus was the alignment of liturgical, pastoral, administrative, and educational structures with the decrees and constitutions promulgated by Vatican II. including Sacrosanctum Concilium, Lumen Gentium, Gaudium et Spes, De Verbum, and Apostolicum Actuositatem. Implementation of liturgical reform was systematically documented. Letters from diocesan offices, episcopal correspondence, and seminary reports provide evidence of the gradual introduction of vernacular languages in the Mass, revisions to the breviary, and adaptations of sacramental rites, all in compliance with conciliar directives. Archival records show episcopal supervision of parish priests, training of clergy in revised liturgical norms, and coordination with seminary faculties to ensure doctrinal consistency. Parish bulletins, liturgical manuals, and visitation records confirm the monitored rollout of reformed liturgical practices, including the orientation of altars, the distribution of lectionaries, and the reorganization of sacramental ceremonies. Seminary education underwent documented reform to integrate conciliar directives with ongoing tridennan theological instruction. Archival records from seminaries in Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia show curricular revisions incorporating pastoral theology, liturgy, canonical law, and contemporary pastoral challenges. Faculty registers, annual reports, and episcopal visitations confirm compliance with papal oversight. Letters from bishops to Rome provide systematic accounts of seminary enrollment, graduation rates, pastoral assignments, and the ongoing assessment of clerical formation in alignment with post-conciliar norms. Canonical oversight was reinforced to ensure doctrinal and administrative continuity. Diocesan synodal decrees, visitation reports, and correspondence to the Congregation for Bishops document the supervision of parish administration, clergy discipline, sacramental registers, and compliance with new liturgical and pastoral directives. Archival correspondence confirms the establishment of reporting mechanisms to monitor the implementation of conciliar reforms at parish, diocesan, and regional levels. Episcopal letters describe regular evaluation of parish activities, seminary performance, and the administration of diocesan institutions, ensuring consistent adherence to papal and conciliar instructions. Global missionary activity continued under rigorous documentation and supervision. Reports from Jesuit, Franciscan, Dominican, Salesian, and other missionary orders in Africa, Asia, and Latin America document the expansion of parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminaries. Letters to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith include inventories of church property, sacramental registers, personnel assignments, and reports on pastoral and educational activities. Correspondence confirms the ordination of indigenous clergy, training in revised liturgical and pastoral practices, and the systematic integration of missionary territories into global canonical governance. In Europe, post-conciliar implementation coincided with social and political changes. Letters from diocesan offices in France, Italy, Germany, Spain, and Austria document negotiations with secular authorities to maintain church operations, property rights, and educational initiatives. Correspondence from papal nuncios provides records of concordats, agreements, and ongoing liaison with governments to protect ecclesiastical interests and regulate clerical appointments. Archival evidence confirms continuity of sacramental and administrative oversight despite regional legal and political fluctuations. In the Americas, diocesan letters, episcopal visitation records, and seminary reports indicate systematic application of conciliar reforms in parish structures, liturgical practices, and pastoral activities. Archival correspondence documents the integration of immigrant communities, the establishment of educational institutions, and the supervision of charitable organizations. Diocesan reports to Rome include inventories of parish and seminary operations, assessments of clergy performance, and confirmation of liturgical compliance, ensuring operational uniformity across multiple continents. In Africa, missionary correspondence from dioceses in Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, Angola, Mozambique, and the Congo documents the systematic introduction of conciliar directives in liturgy, pastoral care, and parish administration. Letters detail the establishment of new diocesan structures, training of indigenous clergy, administration of sacraments, and oversight of schools and hospitals. Coordination with colonial administrations and emerging post-colonial governments is documented, confirming compliance with canonical law and integration into the global church hierarchy. In Asia, archival records from missions in India, the Philippines, China, and Japan demonstrate the structured implementation of post-conciliar reforms. Letters report the administration of sacraments, expansion of diocesan structures, establishment of educational institutions, and training of clergy in compliance with revised pastoral and liturgical guidelines. Reports to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith provide detailed inventories of church property, clergy assignments, and parish correspondence confirms the supervision of educational, charitable, and missionary activities, integration with diocesan structures, and adherence to liturgical and doctrinal norms. Episcopal visitations ensured consistency in religious life, seminary training, and pastoral outreach, with reports submitted to the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. Social and educational institutions received systematic oversight during the post-conciliar transition. Diocesan reports document the operation of schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions, detailing compliance with conciliar directives, financial administration, personnel supervision, and integration with diocesan structures. Letters from bishops to Rome confirm assessment procedures, monitoring of clergy and laity involvement, and adherence to canonical standards for pastoral, liturgical, and educational activity. Canonical governance during this period emphasized hierarchical continuity. Episcopal visitations, synodal decrees, and letters to the Congregation for Bishops confirm the structured supervision of parishes, seminaries, and religious institutions. Registers of sacramental administration, including baptisms, marriages, confirmations, and ordinations, were systematically maintained and reported to diocesan offices and the Vatican. Archival correspondence provides detailed evidence of episcopal oversight, ensuring adherence to canonical law, doctrinal norms, and conciliar directives across dioceses and missionary territories. The Church also systematically monitored secular developments affecting pastoral and liturgical practice. Letters from nuncios, bishops, and diocesan offices document observation of legislative changes, social reforms, and educational policy in Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Archival records confirm coordination between dioceses and papal authorities, reporting on implications for church property, clerical appointments, and religious instruction. Concordats, treaties, and formal agreements preserved in Vatican archives regulated relations with secular governments, safeguarding ecclesiastical autonomy and canonical authority. By 1978, at the end of Pope Paul VI's pontificate, Archival documentation confirms that the post-Vatican II transition had established a fully structured framework for global implementation of conciliar reforms. Correspondence from bishops, religious superiors, and papal nuncios provides detailed records of liturgical adaptation, seminary reform, missionary administration, correspondence from bishops, religious superior reports, and Vatican documentation provide verifiable records of operational continuity, canonical supervision, and doctrinal adherence. The Church emerged from this period with a globally integrated network of dioceses, seminaries, parishes, schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions functioning in coordinated alignment with papal authority and canonical law. The election of Joseph Ratzinger as Pope Benedict XVI on April 19, 2005, marked the beginning of a pontificate characterized by a systematic focus on doctrinal clarification, liturgical orthodoxy, and the structured response to global social, cultural, and ecclesiastical challenges. Vatican archival records, including papal encyclicals, apostolic letters, correspondence with episcopal conferences, and reports from the Secretariat of State, document the systematic administration of the Church's global network of dioceses, seminaries, parishes, and religious institutions under his authority. Archival correspondence from diocesan offices and episcopal conferences confirms the enforcement of canonical discipline and doctrinal consistency. Letters to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, overseen by Pope Benedict XVI before his election, detail procedures for doctrinal oversight, theological review, and compliance with canonical norms. Episcopal visitations, seminary records, and synodal decrees illustrate the structured implementation of pastoral and liturgical practices, as well as the supervision of clerical formation in line with Tridentine principles and post-Vatican II conciliar directives. Benedict XVI's pontificate emphasized the codification and dissemination of doctrinal clarity. Encyclicals such as Deus Caritas Estate, 2005, SPE Salvi, 2007, and Caritas in Veritate, 2009, systematically addressed theological, ethical, and social matters. Correspondence from diocesan offices, seminary faculties, and religious orders confirms structured programs for integrating these encyclicals into pastoral practice, catechesis, seminary instruction, and social initiatives. Archival letters provide detailed accounts of compliance with papal directives, including the distribution of official texts, reporting on parish-level implementation, and assessment of clergy and lay education. Liturgical administration continued under comprehensive oversight. Reports from dioceses in Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia document adherence to post-Vatican II norms with a renewed emphasis on liturgical discipline and rubrical accuracy. Episcopal correspondence confirms the supervision of parish liturgies, the training of clergy in correct sacramental procedures, and the implementation of papal instructions regarding the celebration of the Eucharist, the Liturgy of the Hours, and other sacramental rites. Archival registers of sacramental activity, including baptisms, confirmations, marriages, and ordinations, were systematically maintained and reported to the Holy See, ensuring doctrinal and administrative uniformity across all dioceses. Global missionary and educational activity remained a priority. Archival letters from the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith and episcopal correspondence confirm the expansion and supervision of parishes, schools, seminaries, and charitable institutions in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Reports detail property inventories, clergy and religious personnel assignments, pastoral activities, and sacramental administration. Missionary correspondence confirms the ordination and training of local clergy, the administration of parish and diocesan structures, and compliance with canonical and papal directives. Records from seminaries include enrollment, curriculum revisions, and faculty oversight in alignment with papal guidance. Benedict XVI's pontificate addressed contemporary ethical and cultural issues through systematic documentation. Letters and briefs to diocesan offices, episcopal conferences, and religious orders detail guidance on bioethical matters, including reproductive technologies, end-of-life care, and medical ethics. Vatican archives preserve correspondence on global social and cultural developments, documenting coordinated pastoral responses, dissemination of doctrinal instructions, and monitoring of compliance in diverse socio-political contexts. Episcopal visitations report adherence to these instructions, integration into seminary training, and coordination with diocesan pastoral programs. Interfaith and ecumenical initiatives were documented and systematically monitored. Archival correspondence records meetings, dialogue sessions, and formal communications with Orthodox, Anglican, Protestant, and Jewish communities. Reports from papal nuncios and diocesan offices confirm the structured management of interfaith encounters, the dissemination of official Vatican documents, and the recording of outcomes in line with canonical and diplomatic protocols. Letters detail monitoring of collaborative educational, pastoral, and charitable projects, providing verifiable documentation of global ecumenical activity. Canonical and administrative governance continued with rigorous oversight. Episcopal correspondence, synodal records, and visitation reports document the supervision of diocesan administration, clergy discipline, seminarian formation, and religious orders. Registers confirm systematic monitoring of sacramental records, property inventories, clerical appointments, and the implementation of pastoral programs. Archival records detail the hierarchical communication between diocesan offices, religious superiors, and the Vatican, ensuring structured compliance with canonical and doctrinal directives. In Europe, archival evidence documents responses to secularization, declining mass attendance, and demographic shifts. Correspondence from diocesan offices in Germany, Italy, France, Spain, and Poland details programs for pastoral outreach, parish reorganization, and educational initiatives. Letters to Rome report operational adjustments, personnel assignments, seminary adaptation, and parish-level implementation of papal and conciliar norms. Registers confirm ongoing sacramental administration, monitoring of liturgical compliance, and hierarchical oversight. In the Americas, diocesan and episcopal correspondence documents the expansion and administration of Catholic institutions, including schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations. Reports detail supervision of clergy and lay personnel, maintenance of canonical structures, and adherence to liturgical and pastoral directives. Letters from bishops and apostolic nuncios confirm systematic monitoring, coordination with local authorities, and compliance with papal directives regarding social teaching, education, and pastoral care. In Africa, missionary correspondence preserves detailed records of parish establishment, seminary administration, ordination of indigenous clergy, and the operation of schools and hospitals. Letters to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith provide inventories of church property, pastoral activities, sacramental registers, and clergy assignments. Archival records demonstrate structured oversight by bishops, apostolic vicars, and religious superiors, ensuring operational continuity, canonical compliance, and alignment with papal directives. In Asia, archival evidence documents the creation and administration of dioceses, seminaries, schools, and hospitals. Correspondence from bishops, apostolic vicars, and religious orders details clerical training, pastoral activity, sacramental administration, and integration of local institutions into canonical governance. Letters confirm systematic supervision by the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith, monitoring of parish and diocesan activity, and compliance with papal and conciliar directives. The pontificate maintained global consistency in clerical formation. Seminary records, episcopal correspondence, and Vatican reports document oversight of curriculum, theological instruction, pastoral training, and liturgical education. Letters detail the supervision of faculty, assessment of student progress, and evaluation of ordination readiness. Archival records confirm that these procedures were coordinated across continents to ensure doctrinal uniformity, clerical competence, and compliance with canonical and papal norms. Social and charitable initiatives were systematically documented. Letters from dioceses, episcopal reports, and religious superior correspondence detail the administration of hospitals, schools, and relief programs. Registers provide verifiable records of financial management, personnel assignments, and operational oversight. Coordination with local authorities, governments, and international agencies is documented, confirming compliance with canonical directives, papal instructions, and established operational standards. By 2013, archival evidence confirms that the Roman Catholic Church under Pope Benedict XVI had systematically reinforced doctrinal clarity, maintained liturgical orthodoxy, and preserved administrative and canonical continuity. Correspondence from bishops, religious superiors, and apostolic nuncios provides verifiable documentation of global governance, missionary expansion, clerical formation, parish administration, liturgical compliance, and engagement with ethical and cultural challenges. The Church emerged with a structured network of dioceses, parishes, seminaries, schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions, functioning under coordinated hierarchical supervision in alignment with papal authority and canonical law. The election of Jorge Mario Bergoglio as Pope Francis on March 13, 2013, initiated a period of documented global ecclesiastical administration and systematic engagement with contemporary social, political, and pastoral challenges. Archival records from the Vatican, including papal apostolic letters, encyclicals, correspondence with episcopal conferences, and reports from the Secretariat of State document structured oversight of diocesan governance, religious orders, missionary activity, educational institutions, and charitable operations across Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. Pope Francis' administration emphasized organizational transparency and hierarchical coordination. Letters and briefs from diocesan offices, apostolic nuncios, and religious superiors confirm systematic implementation of canonical procedures, clerical supervision, and pastoral oversight. Reports include inventories of diocesan assets, sacramental registers, seminary enrollment, and ordination records. Archival correspondence documents the monitoring of parishes, seminaries, and religious institutions, ensuring compliance with canonical norms, liturgical standards, and papal directives. Global missionary activity continued under documented papal supervision. Letters from diocesan bishops, religious superiors, and missionary orders detail the establishment of parishes, seminaries, schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations. Reports to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith include verified inventories of church property, pastoral activities, clergy assignments, and sacramental administration. Missionary correspondence confirms the ordination and training of indigenous clergy, the administration of sacraments, and the integration of new parishes into canonical diocesan structures. Archival records demonstrate systematic alignment with papal and canonical oversight across multiple continents. Educational oversight and institutional administration were systematically documented. Letters and reports from diocesan offices, episcopal conferences, and religious superiors confirm supervision of Catholic schools, universities, seminaries, and hospitals. Archival records provide a detailed accounting of personnel assignments, curricula, financial management, and operational compliance. Coordination with the Congregation for Catholic Education and the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life ensured standardized procedures for governance, pedagogical instruction, and pastoral administration. Liturgical administration remained under hierarchical supervision. Episcopal letters, diocesan visitations, and parish registers document implementation of liturgical norms, sacramental oversight, and coordination with seminaries and clergy. Archival records confirm standardized procedures for the celebration of the Eucharist, administration of the sacraments, liturgy of the hours, and other canonical rites. Reports detail clergy training, parish compliance, and episcopal monitoring to ensure continuity of ritual practice in alignment with canonical and papal directives. Canonical governance was systematically reinforced. Synodal decrees, diocesan visitation reports, and correspondence to the Congregation for Bishops document oversight of parish administration, clergy discipline, and sacramental registers. Archival evidence confirms hierarchical reporting and evaluation of clergy, seminary formation, and parish performance. Registers maintained records of baptisms, marriages, confirmations, ordinations, and ecclesiastical property, ensuring doctrinal and operational consistency throughout dioceses and missions worldwide. Archival correspondence documents engagement with global socio-political issues. Letters from the Secretariat of State, papal briefs, and diocesan reports outline structured coordination with governments, international agencies, and non-governmental organizations on matters including humanitarian aid, refugee assistance, social welfare, and public health initiatives. Episcopal and religious superior reports provide detailed evidence of operational execution, personnel deployment, resource allocation, and compliance with canonical and administrative standards. Pope Francis's papacy systematically addressed contemporary ethical and social challenges. Archival records confirm the codification of guidance on environmental stewardship, social justice, labor and economic policy, migration, and human rights. Encyclicals such as Laudato Si, 2015, and Fratelli Tutti, 2020, were distributed to dioceses and seminaries worldwide, with letters from bishops documenting integration into parish programs, pastoral planning, and educational curricula. Archival correspondence demonstrates systematic reporting and assessment of implementation, including monitoring compliance with papal instructions and canonical norms. Ecumenical and interfaith engagement was documented and structured. Vatican records, apostolic letters, and episcopal correspondence confirm formal meetings, dialogue sessions, and collaborative projects with Orthodox, Anglican, Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim communities. Archival letters detail coordination with dioceses and religious superior offices to implement joint educational, pastoral, and charitable initiatives, with systematic reporting of outcomes to the Holy See. These documents provide verifiable evidence of operational oversight and doctrinal compliance in interreligious engagement. In Europe, archival correspondence documents structured responses to demographic shifts, secularization, and social change. Letters from bishops and diocesan offices detail the administration of parishes, seminaries, and social institutions, ensuring compliance with canonical norms and papal directives. Reports confirm oversight of liturgical practices, sacramental administration, and pastoral programming. Registers maintained by dioceses document continuity in parish activity, sacramental records, and clergy deployment, providing verifiable evidence of operational alignment with papal guidance. In the Americas, reports from dioceses and episcopal offices document supervision of Catholic institutions, including schools, universities, hospitals, and charitable organizations. Archival letters provide a detailed accounting of personnel assignments, operational management, financial reporting, and pastoral oversight. Correspondence confirms systematic coordination with the Holy See to ensure doctrinal consistency, canonical compliance, and effective management of global church initiatives. In Africa, archival records from dioceses, apostolic vicars, and religious orders document the expansion and administration of parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminaries. Letters to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith and the Secretariat of State provide inventories of property, clergy, and religious personnel assignments, pastoral activities, and sacramental administration. Episcopal supervision ensured compliance with canonical law, liturgical norms, and papal directives, maintaining hierarchical and operational continuity in all dioceses. In Asia, documentation confirms the establishment and administration of dioceses, parishes, seminaries, schools, and charitable institutions. Letters from bishops and religious superiors provide detailed records of clergy training, ordinations, pastoral activity, and integration into canonical governance. Archival correspondence confirms hierarchical monitoring, reporting to Rome, and adherence to papal directives, ensuring global consistency of ecclesiastical administration and doctrinal integrity. Seminary formation and clergy training were systematically maintained. Reports from seminaries, episcopal correspondence, and Vatican archives document curriculum administration, pastoral instruction, liturgical training, and theological education. Letters detail evaluation of students, faculty oversight, ordination readiness, and diocesan integration of newly trained clergy. Records confirm alignment with papal and conciliar directives, ensuring doctrinal consistency, pastoral competence, and canonical compliance across the global church. Social and charitable initiatives continued under structured supervision. Archival correspondence and diocesan reports document the administration of hospitals, schools, refugee programs, and charitable institutions. Registers confirm personnel assignments, operational management, financial reporting, and oversight by bishops and religious superiors. Coordination with Vatican offices, local governments, and international agencies ensured compliance with canonical law, papal instructions, and structured operational procedures. By 2025, Archival evidence demonstrates that the Roman Catholic Church under Pope Francis maintained hierarchical oversight, global missionary expansion, liturgical supervision, educational administration, and pastoral care in alignment with canonical and papal directives. Letters from bishops, religious superiors, and apostolic nuncios provide verifiable documentation of parish activity, diocesan administration, missionary operations, sacramental oversight, and institutional management. Registers confirm global operational continuity, doctrinal consistency, and canonical compliance, ensuring the Church's structured adaptation to contemporary social, cultural, and ethical challenges. From 1554 to 2025, the Roman Catholic Church systematically maintained hierarchical authority, doctrinal continuity, and operational governance across a globally expanding network of dioceses, seminaries, parishes, missionary territories, educational institutions, and charitable organizations. Archival documentation from papal registers, correspondence with bishops and apostolic nuncios, synodal records, and reports from the various congregations demonstrates continuous oversight of ecclesiastical, liturgical, pastoral, and administrative functions across Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. The historical record confirms a trajectory of doctrinal consolidation, coordinated missionary activity, canonical governance, educational expansion, and global pastoral care, reflecting the Church's sustained structural and operational capacity over nearly 5 centuries. The Church's post-Tridentine period, following the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, established a foundational framework for global doctrinal and administrative control. Archival letters and synodal records document the codification of sacramental practice, clerical discipline, and episcopal residence requirements. Seminaries were systematically established to provide standardized theological and pastoral training, with diocesan visitation records confirming oversight and compliance. Reports from the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith detail the extension of these structures to missionary territories in the Americas, Asia, and Africa, demonstrating documented integration of new dioceses into canonical governance and systematic pastoral administration. The 17th and 18th centuries illustrate the Church's adaptation to political and intellectual transformations. Correspondence from bishops and papal nuncios documents the management of dioceses under absolute monarchies, adherence to concordats, and protection of ecclesiastical property. Archival evidence from missionary orders confirms the expansion of parishes, schools, and seminaries in colonial and emerging post-colonial territories. Reports to the Vatican detail clerical appointments, sacramental registers, and institutional operations, reflecting a consistent and verifiable approach to global governance and doctrinal supervision during periods of social and political change. The 19th century, encompassing the aftermath of the French Revolution, Napoleonic disruptions, and the loss of the Papal States, reinforced the Church's emphasis on spiritual authority and doctrinal clarity. Vatican I, 1869 to 1870, formally defined papal infallibility in matters of faith and morals, consolidating hierarchical control over theological instruction and canonical interpretation. Archival records document the administration of dioceses, seminaries, and religious orders, confirming operational continuity amid geopolitical shifts. Correspondence from bishops, religious superiors, and apostolic nuncios documents the supervision of clerical formation, sacramental administration, and missionary expansion during periods of European political reorganization. The capture of Rome in 1870 redirected papal activity toward global ecclesiastical governance and systematic missionary expansion. Archival letters and visitation records demonstrate the establishment of diocesan networks across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, with documented oversight of parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminaries. Reports to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith detail the ordination of indigenous clergy, integration of local dioceses into canonical governance, and coordination of missionary activity with hierarchical supervision. Documentation from religious orders, including Jesuits, Franciscans, Dominicans, and Salesians, confirms compliance with papal and conciliar directives regarding education, pastoral care, and administrative oversight. During the 20th century, the Church navigated global conflicts and socio-political upheavals with structured administrative responses. Archival correspondence confirms the coordination of dioceses during World War I and World War II, including the supervision of humanitarian relief, clergy assignments, and sacramental administration. Papal encyclicals and letters document engagement with industrialization, labor rights, social teaching, and charitable activity, while diocesan reports confirm implementation of these initiatives through operational oversight, monitoring of institutions, and assessment of clergy performance. Educational oversight and institutional administration were systematically documented. Letters and reports from diocesan offices, episcopal conferences, and religious superiors confirm supervision of Catholic schools, universities, seminaries, and hospitals. Archival records provide a detailed accounting of personnel assignments, curricula, financial management, and operational compliance. Coordination with the Congregation for Catholic Education and the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life ensured standardized procedures for governance, pedagogical instruction, and pastoral administration. Liturgical administration remained under hierarchical supervision. Episcopal letters, diocesan visitations, and parish registers document implementation of liturgical norms, sacramental oversight, and coordination with seminaries and clergy. Archival records confirm standardized procedures for the celebration of the Eucharist, administration of the sacraments, liturgy of the hours, and other canonical rites. Reports detail clergy training, parish compliance, and episcopal monitoring to ensure continuity of ritual practice in alignment with canonical and papal directives. Canonical governance was systematically reinforced. Synodal decrees, diocesan visitation reports, and correspondence to the Congregation for Bishops document oversight of parish administration, clergy discipline, and sacramental registers. Archival evidence confirms hierarchical reporting and evaluation of clergy, seminary formation, and parish performance. Registers maintained records of baptisms, marriages, confirmations, ordinations, and ecclesiastical property, ensuring doctrinal and operational consistency throughout dioceses and missions worldwide. Archival correspondence documents engagement with global socio-political issues. Letters from the Secretariat of State, papal briefs, and diocesan reports outline structured coordination with governments, international agencies, and non-governmental organizations on matters including humanitarian aid, refugee assistance, social welfare, and public health initiatives. Episcopal and religious superior reports provide detailed evidence of operational execution, personnel deployment, resource allocation, and compliance with canonical and administrative standards. Pope Francis's papacy systematically addressed contemporary ethical and social challenges. Archival records confirm the codification of guidance on environmental stewardship, social justice, labor and economic policy, migration, and human rights. Encyclicals such as Laudato Si, 2015, and Fratelli Tutti, 2020, were distributed to dioceses and seminaries worldwide, with letters from bishops documenting integration into parish programs, pastoral planning, and educational curricula. Archival correspondence demonstrates systematic reporting and assessment of implementation, including monitoring compliance with papal instructions and canonical norms. Ecumenical and interfaith engagement was documented and structured. Vatican records, apostolic letters, and episcopal correspondence confirm formal meetings, dialogue sessions, and collaborative projects with Orthodox, Anglican, Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim communities. Archival letters detail coordination with dioceses and religious superior offices to implement joint educational, pastoral, and charitable initiatives, with systematic reporting of outcomes to the Holy See. These documents provide verifiable evidence of operational oversight and doctrinal compliance in interreligious engagement. In Europe, archival correspondence documents structured responses to demographic shifts, secularization, and social change. Letters from bishops and diocesan offices detail the administration of parishes, seminaries, and social institutions, ensuring compliance with canonical norms and papal directives. Reports confirm oversight of liturgical practices, sacramental administration, and pastoral programming. Registers maintained by dioceses document continuity in parish activity, sacramental records, and clergy deployment, providing verifiable evidence of operational alignment with papal guidance. In the Americas, reports from dioceses and episcopal offices document supervision of Catholic institutions, including schools, universities, hospitals, and charitable organizations. Archival letters provide a detailed accounting of personnel assignments, operational management, financial reporting, and pastoral oversight. Correspondence confirms systematic coordination with the Holy See to ensure doctrinal consistency, canonical compliance, and effective management of global church initiatives. In Africa, archival records from dioceses, apostolic vicars, and religious orders document the expansion and administration of parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminaries. Letters to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith and the Secretariat of State provide inventories of property, clergy, and religious personnel assignments, pastoral activities, and sacramental administration. Episcopal supervision ensured compliance with canonical law, liturgical norms, and papal directives, maintaining hierarchical and operational continuity in all dioceses. In Asia, documentation confirms the establishment and administration of dioceses, parishes, seminaries, schools, and charitable institutions. Letters from bishops and religious superiors provide detailed records of clergy training, ordinations, pastoral activity, and integration into canonical governance. Archival correspondence confirms hierarchical monitoring, reporting to Rome, and adherence to papal directives, ensuring global consistency of ecclesiastical administration and doctrinal integrity. Seminary formation and clergy training were systematically maintained. Reports from seminaries, episcopal correspondence, and Vatican archives document curriculum administration, pastoral instruction, liturgical training, and theological education. Letters detail evaluation of students, faculty oversight, ordination readiness, and diocesan integration of newly trained clergy. Records confirm alignment with papal and conciliar directives, ensuring doctrinal consistency, pastoral competence, and canonical compliance across the global Church. Social and charitable initiatives continued under structured supervision. Archival correspondence and diocesan reports document the administration of hospitals, schools, refugee programs, and charitable institutions. Registers confirm personnel assignments, operational management, financial reporting, and oversight by bishops and religious superiors. Coordination with Vatican offices, local governments, and international agencies ensured compliance with canonical law, papal instructions, and structured operational procedures. By 2025, archival evidence demonstrates that the Roman Catholic Church under Pope Francis maintained hierarchical oversight, global missionary expansion, liturgical supervision, educational administration, and pastoral care in alignment with canonical and papal directives. Letters from bishops, religious superiors, and apostolic nuncios provide verifiable documentation of parish activity, diocesan administration, missionary operations, sacramental oversight, and institutional management. Registers confirm global operational continuity, doctrinal consistency, and canonical compliance, ensuring the Church's structured adaptation to contemporary social, cultural, and ethical challenges. From 1554 to 2025, the Roman Catholic Church systematically maintained hierarchical authority, doctrinal continuity, and operational governance across a globally expanding network of dioceses, seminaries, parishes, missionary territories, educational institutions, and charitable organizations. Archival documentation from papal registers, correspondence with bishops and apostolic nuncios, synodal records, and reports from the various congregations demonstrates continuous oversight of ecclesiastical, liturgical, pastoral, and administrative functions across Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. The historical record confirms a trajectory of doctrinal consolidation, coordinated missionary activity, canonical governance, educational expansion, and global pastoral care, reflecting the Church's sustained structural and operational capacity over nearly 5 centuries. The Church's post-Tridentine period, following the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, established a foundational framework for global doctrinal and administrative control. Archival letters and synodal records document the codification of sacramental practice, clerical discipline, and episcopal residence requirements. Seminaries were systematically established to provide standardized theological and pastoral training, with diocesan visitation records confirming oversight and compliance. Reports from the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith detail the extension of these structures to missionary territories in the Americas, Asia, and Africa, demonstrating documented integration of new dioceses into canonical governance and systematic pastoral administration. The 17th and 18th centuries illustrate the Church's adaptation to political and intellectual transformations. Correspondence from bishops and papal nuncios documents the management of dioceses under absolute monarchies, adherence to concordats, and protection of ecclesiastical property. Archival evidence from missionary orders confirms the expansion of parishes, schools, and seminaries in colonial and emerging post-colonial territories. Reports to the Vatican detail clerical appointments, sacramental registers, and institutional operations, reflecting a consistent and verifiable approach to global governance and doctrinal supervision during periods of social and political change. The 19th century, encompassing the aftermath of the French Revolution, Napoleonic disruptions, and the loss of the Papal States, reinforced the Church's emphasis on spiritual authority and doctrinal clarity. Vatican I, 1869 to 1870, formally defined papal infallibility in matters of faith and morals, consolidating hierarchical control over theological instruction and canonical interpretation. Archival records document the administration of dioceses, seminaries, and religious orders, confirming operational continuity amid geopolitical shifts. Correspondence from bishops, religious superiors, and apostolic nuncios documents the supervision of clerical formation, sacramental administration, and missionary expansion during periods of European political reorganization. The capture of Rome in 1870 redirected papal activity toward global ecclesiastical governance and systematic missionary expansion. Archival letters and visitation records demonstrate the establishment of diocesan networks across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, with documented oversight of parishes, schools, hospitals, and seminaries. Reports to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith detail the ordination of indigenous clergy, integration of local dioceses into canonical governance, and coordination of missionary activity with hierarchical supervision. Documentation from religious orders, including Jesuits, Franciscans, Dominicans, and Salesians, confirms compliance with papal and conciliar directives regarding education, pastoral care, and administrative oversight. During the 20th century, the Church navigated global conflicts and socio-political upheavals with structured administrative responses. Archival correspondence confirms the coordination of dioceses during World War I and World War II, including the supervision of humanitarian relief, clergy assignments, and sacramental administration. Papal encyclicals and letters document engagement with industrialization, labor rights, social teaching, and charitable activity, while diocesan reports confirm implementation of these initiatives through operational oversight, monitoring of institutions, and assessment of clergy performance. Missionary expansion continued with detailed reporting of ordinations, property inventories, and pastoral administration in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The post-war period and the Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965, initiated a coordinated global transition. Archival evidence documents the implementation of conciliar reforms, including liturgical adaptation, seminary curriculum revisions, episcopal oversight, and pastoral program adjustments. Correspondence from bishops and religious superiors confirms the introduction of vernacular liturgy, restructured sacramental rites, and systematic monitoring of clerical and lay compliance. Reports from diocesan offices and missionary territories provide inventories of church property, clergy assignments, sacramental registers, and operational assessments, demonstrating hierarchical coordination and canonical governance across continents. The pontificates of John Paul II, 1978 to 2005, and Benedict XVI, 2005 to 2013, reinforced global expansion, doctrinal oversight, and administrative supervision. Archival records document extensive international travel by John Paul II, coordinated visits with diocesan offices, apostolic nuncios, and civil authorities, and systematic supervision of liturgical, pastoral, and educational initiatives. Reports from religious orders and diocesan offices confirm adherence to papal directives in missionary activity, seminary administration, and social initiatives. Encyclicals issued by both pontiffs were integrated into structured educational, pastoral, and administrative programs, with correspondence and visitation reports confirming systematic implementation and operational compliance. Pope Benedict XVI's administration emphasized doctrinal clarity and canonical oversight, documented in letters from dioceses, seminary reports, and correspondence with religious orders. Archival evidence confirms the systematic implementation of encyclicals addressing theology, ethics, and social issues. Liturgical administration, seminary formation, sacramental registers, and parish governance were monitored through hierarchical reporting, episcopal visitations, and formal correspondence, ensuring operational continuity and doctrinal uniformity across dioceses and missionary territories. Reports from episcopal conferences provide detailed records of compliance with papal and conciliar directives. Pope Francis's pontificate, beginning in 2013, continued the global coordination of ecclesiastical, educational, and charitable institutions. Archival correspondence confirms supervision of dioceses, seminaries, parishes, and religious orders, ensuring canonical and liturgical compliance. Missionary expansion, parish administration, and clerical formation were systematically documented, with inventories of property, sacramental registers, and operational reports submitted to the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith and the Secretariat of State. Encyclicals such as Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti were systematically distributed to dioceses and seminaries, with hierarchical oversight ensuring integration into pastoral, educational, and institutional programs. Global social, cultural, and ethical engagement was structured through documented coordination with governments, international agencies, and non-governmental organizations. Archival letters and reports confirm operational management of humanitarian aid, educational programs, health initiatives, and social welfare projects. Episcopal and religious superior reports provide detailed records of personnel deployment, resource allocation, and compliance with canonical and papal instructions. Interfaith and ecumenical initiatives were documented through correspondence, meeting records, and project reports, verifying structured engagement with Orthodox, Anglican, Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim communities. Sacramental administration remained consistently documented. Registers of baptisms, marriages, confirmations, ordinations, and parish activity were maintained and reported to diocesan offices and the Vatican. Archival correspondence confirms hierarchical oversight of sacramental compliance, clerical assignments, and liturgical practice. Seminary curricula and clerical formation were systematically monitored, ensuring theological instruction, pastoral training, and liturgical proficiency aligned with canonical and papal directives. Educational and charitable institutions were administered under hierarchical supervision, with detailed reporting confirming operational compliance, financial management, and personnel accountability. By 2025, archival evidence confirms that the Roman Catholic Church had maintained hierarchical oversight, doctrinal continuity, operational governance, and global presence for nearly 5 centuries. Letters from bishops, apostolic nuncios, and religious reports provide verifiable documentation of diocesan administration, missionary activity, educational and charitable initiatives, clerical formation, sacramental oversight, and canonical compliance. Registers, synodal decrees, visitation reports, and correspondence demonstrate systematic operational continuity and hierarchical coordination across Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. The historical record confirms the Roman Catholic Church's consistent capacity to maintain doctrinal integrity, hierarchical governance, global pastoral care, and operational administration over successive pontificates. Archival documentation from multiple continents provides continuous, verifiable evidence of sacramental administration, missionary expansion, clerical formation, seminary, and parish governance, educational oversight, charitable operations, and interfaith engagement. From the Counter-Reformation through the post-Vatican II era to contemporary global administration, the Church's structures, procedures, and hierarchical supervision ensured doctrinal consistency, operational continuity, and global coordination in alignment with canonical law and papal authority.